All right, it's time to feed the babies, and kickoff is just probably another 10 minutes. I'm not a football head, but I am going to watch the Super Bowl just because there's nothing else to do. But when halftime comes on, halftime is going to be extremely nasty and vulgar, so I'm not going to watch it. So I'm going to take that opportunity to tell you my thoughts on how I feel after all these years that the public, and more than just the public, but police and security and shippers and people who you come in contact with to either have your paperwork signed or unload your truck, even forklift drivers, all treated you like you were a stinky, filthy criminal, subhuman, not worthy of any kind of decency or respect, no matter how polite, how cheery, and how eager you were to get along and made it obvious that you didn't want any drama or trouble. I'm going to tell you a few stories during halftime. Well, I was wrong about kickoff time, so it's about an hour from now. So let me tell you, I'll go back to the beginning. When I first started driving a truck, I started driving for a company called Midwestern Distribution, and they were out of Fort Scott, Kansas. And I only worked for them just long enough to have enough experience to go get a real job, because it was just like Prime and Swift and Knight. It was a kind of company that sells the driver a truck and screws them every second of every day on payments and insurance, number one. And number two, it separates them from a huge amount of liability. So if a brand new driver who's bought one of their trucks, you're not an owner operator, you're a lease operator, because you're leasing the truck from them. Well, you have your own insurance. You pay for your own insurance. So it separates the company like Prime or all the other companies I mentioned from being responsible for wrecks. And, you have $1 million worth of insurance, and that's the limit. So Midwestern Distribution, they used to call the trucks, and these were beat up old Freightliner cab overs, they used to call them the dollar down truck. And that's all the other truck drivers that would make fun of anybody that went to work there. But if you're a brand new driver, you have no choice. You got to start somewhere, just like Swift, Prime, and Knight. And I always tell people who are new drivers, do not fall for it. Do not. And here's what'll happen. When freight is highly cyclical, and when freight slows down, who do you think is going to sit? You or the trucks that they own? We all know the answer, and that's what happens. But Midwestern Distribution, that was their scam. They sold you this piece of crap truck, and they put you with a driver trainer, and it might be 30 days or something like that. And then every little thing that goes wrong with it, you have to go to their shop to have it fixed. And that's where I broke a glad hand off the back of my cab. So instead of drilling out the rivets, they replaced the entire back of the cab and charged me like $800 or $900 instead of, 40 or 50. That's the kind of scam I'm talking about. And then there were people that would get close to getting their trucks paid for, and they would stop running them. So they'd take their truck back and sell it to somebody else. It was a big scam, and eventually the government stepped in, and they're out of business. And then God stepped in, and there was a big flood, and it absolutely covered Midwestern Distribution's terminal and all the trucks and all the offices and people's cars. So what goes around comes around. So I ran all over the United States for about 3 months. And here's a little funny story. When I came back home, I had just one daughter, one baby. And I had grown a beard while I was gone. And when I came home, oh my God, she was so scared of me. She wouldn't come to me. I had to shave my beard off for her to see it was Daddy. So I found another job. And it was running the East Coast and mostly New England. So I ran Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Eastern New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, Delaware, Maryland, uh, Eastern Pennsylvania, and, sometimes further south. Sometimes you'd go to Miami every once in a blue moon. Those are the loads people fought over because you got paid so much. So that, about 90% of my driving was strictly New England and strictly going to union shops. And I never met so many horrible, awful, the worst humans you would want to meet in union shops. They were just such horrible, horrible people. I'll give you one example. I have a million examples. I could write a freaking book on unions. I'm talking about machinist union. I'm not talking about, longshoremen. I know nothing about them. I'm talking about the grocery, the warehouse, and the auto workers union. Those are the three unions that I have experience with. And I have nightmare stories of all three unions. And I hate unions down to the marrow of my bone. So, moving on. I pull into Hugh Blind Liquor Warehouse. And that is I think it's in East Hartford, Connecticut. It might be Hartford. And I had a load of whiskey. And, I opened my doors, bumped the dock. While I was there, somebody banged into my truck and knocked the mirror off, and they wanted to pay me with a black and white TV. I said, no, this isn't even my truck, and I can't leave here without a mirror. So he was pissed. The people in the warehouse didn't want me to, make him use his insurance and get a police report and fix my mirror so I could leave. But anyway, so I get in there, right? And the union forklift driver, eases on over to me. And these union shops have the slowest forklifts you could ever have and still say, yep, it's moving forward. So he comes up to me and he says, it's going to cost you $20. And I said, what's going to cost me $20? He said, we get $20 to unload a truck. And I knew this wasn't true, right? So I said, okay, hold on. I'm going to get some change from that office up there. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And I continue walking. I step into that office. I said, hey, has anybody got a change for a $100 bill? Why? What you need change for? That guy in the forklift said that he's not going to unload me unless I give him $20. I'm all innocent like, So they get on a loudspeaker and call him in there. And I leave, and he is mad. But he came out mad as hell, and he unloaded me quickly. And then I had to go deal with a mirror. So I encountered those kind of people every stinging place I went where there was a union. Stop and Shop is it's a grocery store in New England. I don't know if it still is or not, but it was huge when I was there. And they had stores everywhere, but they had a giant warehouse in North Haven, Connecticut. And I used to go down to New Jersey and pick up Campbell's Soup in Camden, New Jersey, and bring it up there and, deliver it. And they did the same thing. They would, I'm going to cough. So I'm sorry. Same thing, try to get you to pay them, say, oh, it's going to be hours and hours before I can get to you, but, for $20, I'll get right on it. And I would say, man, I get paid by the hour, just like you. You take all the time you want. And it was true. I got paid while I was sitting there. So I did get paid by the hour. And just over and over. And then there was security guards. I don't know how America has developed this attitude. And there's lots of people that will say, well, not me. And okay, I believe you. But pretty much, as a truck driver, everyone I encountered except truck stop waitresses treated me like shit. Like I was subhuman, like I was a criminal, like I was diseased or dirty or drugged, which back in them days I did snort a line now and then to stay awake, but that's another story. And then cops. I'm going to give you, I don't want to go on and on about cops. I have 1,000 cop stories that I could tell you that would just make your nose bleed. You'd be so freaking mad. And it's only the truck drivers. They don't treat normal, everyday car drivers. And I think the reason is because let's say you're in Baltimore, Maryland, and a state cop pulls you over. He's somewhere attached to Baltimore, Maryland. You can go to court. You can tell people what he said to you and how he treated you. truck drivers, they look at your license. You're from nowhere near, so they get to treat you just as bad as it turns them on to treat you. And no matter how polite, no matter how accommodating, no matter how cheerful or respectful you are, that's the way I got treated. Mostly in the Northeast and the East Coast. Here is one of the last times, and it was what made me decide to leave a company that drove up there. I was on the interstate going across Massachusetts. I think it's 90. And they have these rest areas on this turnpike. And it's, they got like McDonald's in them and bathrooms and stuff like that. And then they have a bunch of car parking. And then they have a bunch of truck parking. Well, they had shut the interstate down because the weather had got so bad. It was like 17 or 18 degrees out. And they hadn't got the snow plows out yet. So in Massachusetts, there was these huge fines if you idled your truck. It did not matter if you were in it trying to sleep and it was 18 degrees. It did not matter. Well, now this truck stop is so packed up with trucks, nobody could leave if they wanted to, even the cars. So the cars are all idling, trying to stay warm. Some are huddled up inside the McDonald's, drinking coffee. And, when you're a trucker, you don't miss an opportunity to try to get a little sleep, especially back in those days. Sleep was secondary to miles. So I left my truck running like every other truck in the parking lot. And I crawl in bed. And then, I fall asleep. And a couple hours into my sleep, I hear this loud bang on my door. And I jump up out of my bed. I jump in the seat. And there's this lady cop down there. And she has beat on my door with a nightstick. And I roll my window down. I'm looking at all these dents she has put in my door. And I said, why would you do that? I mean, you could have knocked on my door with your hand. You have dented the hell out of my truck. Who's going to pay for that? It's not my truck. They're going to notice that. Not my problem. She said, you got to shut your truck off. And I said, officer, if I shut my truck off, I'm going to die in this cold. Nobody can live in this kind of cold without some sort of heat. Not my problem. And she walks away and she knocks on every stinking truck out there. And everybody shuts their truck off. And I sit up in my seat. And she gets back on the interstate. She has to back down the on-ramp and then get out on the interstate, and she leaves. And I'm thinking, the ticket back then was massive. It was like $300. Nowadays, it's, nothing. But back then, a $300 ticket for a guy just starting out trucking with a young family and a wife who refused to, do anything but sit home, drink, and smoke. Drink coffee and smoke. She wasn't a drinker. I can say that about her. So I cranked it up, went back to bed, and nothing else happened. And in the morning, plows came through, and slowly the rest area opened up. And I'm going to tell you one more. So let me tell you this. I quit running New England, and I swore I would never drive a truck in New England again. Now, that's not the only place I met assholes. That's not the only place I got mistreated, but it is the only place where I got mistreated every single time I came in contact with any kind of human, whether it was a security guard or a cop or a union forklift driver or a shipper behind a window that was non-union. But because you couldn't do anything, they got to treat you so terribly. So I packed up my family and I moved back to Louisiana. And I had great jobs after that. And I loved what I did. And I didn't really, I had a day cab and I was home every night. And that was with Ashland. That was when I injured my back the first time. And they fired me. And actually, they didn't fire me. They made me quit. And they told me they would fire me if I didn't quit. I told you that story. So, fast forward, divorce. Charlie and I are married. I teach her how to drive a truck. We're owner-operators now, and we're leased to a fantastic company, Forward Air, one of the best companies I ever worked for. And incidentally, they're paying $240 a mile now and a really large fuel surcharge, which, when you're getting 6,000, 6,500 miles a week, that adds up. So we're going down, we're westbound on Interstate 10, We're just west of Kerrville, going down Interstate 10. And there's a long hill. It's 3 in the morning. I'm the only vehicle out there. I got the Jake brake holding me back. And, you let your speed come up a little bit over the speed limit. And then you hit your brakes or bring yourself down below the speed limit. And that way you don't burn your brakes out. Well, I get about halfway down this hill. And there's a cop sitting in the middle. And I didn't make a big deal out of slamming on my brakes. I don't want to lose my brakes. I'm doing what any cop knows you got to do in a truck. 5 over, 5 under, 5 over, 5 under. And that way you don't wear your brakes out or smoke your brakes. I was very, very heavy. I was 79.9 most of the time with that company. No, I wasn't with Forward Air. I was with John and John. So I get to the bottom of the hill. He pulls me over. And there's 2 cops. And they both have these gigantic cowboy hats on. They look ridiculous. Both these cops look like they're 17, 18 years old. I'm thinking, they stole their daddy's cop car and are out here playing cop. But he had a gun. So he pulls me over and he said, "Do you know how fast I clocked you?" I said, "Probably 65. He goes, 65? Oh, yeah, 65. Who do you think you are? Anyway, he's acting like I've committed a major crime by going 5 over. And I said, well, that's how trucks operate. You got to let your speed go over your target speed, and then you brake down under your target speed. Otherwise, you end up losing control going downhill, and you don't have runoff lanes here. So he's still treating me like crap, and his partner goes over. Now, I get out. I was going to get out the driver's side. He goes, "Get out on this side. I don't want you to get run over." Well, now you don't want to get run over. You don't want to stop me going downhill. So I get out on the passenger side. And I leave my door open. I have all my paperwork. He doesn't want to see any of that. He just wants to be a smart ass and call me a criminal for going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. This other cop, his buddy, goes around in front of my truck. And I look in my truck through my open door. And I see him open my door. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm going to check your truck." "What are you going to check my truck for?" I said, "My wife is in there." He said, "Is she dressed?" I said, "Do you go to bed with your clothes on?" "Of course she's not dressed. She's in bed sleeping." So he reluctantly backs out of my truck. But on the way out, he picks up my tire thumper. My tire thumper, it says Tire Thumper right on it. It's a baseball bat that I won at a giveaway at a 76 truck stop a million years ago. Actually, I'll tell you where I won it. Secondi Brothers Truck Stop on Interstate 95 in New Haven, Connecticut. They were having a truck driver appreciation giveaway, and I won a tire thumper. And I had it that long. It's still somewhere around here, 40-something years later. So he comes out with this tire thumper, and he shows it to the cop that's grilling me, treating me like I'm some kind of bandito. He says, "You ever hit anybody with that?" Now, both these cops, I'm probably a good 8 or 10 inches taller than them. They really look like children. He looks up, and he has to look up really high because of a stupid cowboy hat. And he says, "You ever hit anybody with that?" I said, "Look at me. Do I look like I need to hit somebody with a tire thumper?" And he thought about it a minute, and he threw my tire thumper back in the truck. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to write you a ticket. I just want you to slow down." I said, "All righty. Have a good day." Those are the kind of cops I encountered. Nutbags. Looney Tune nutbags. Who treated every truck driver like they were absolute pollution. And even in the South, I have encountered more crooked, dishonest people that had badges and guns than any other segment of society. I can't tell you how many cops I had demand a cash payment for my ticket. Now, when they come out with cameras and everybody had a cell phone, that shit stopped. So there you go. I have some beautiful memories of driving a truck, and every memory that I have that's a horrible memory involves cops or unions, and that's pretty sad.